Welcome. Hello. It's time for Block Talk. We're on Bitcoin block 442,736. Yeah, so just creeping along here, moving good. The mempool's looking a little full, but we're getting still some blocks coming at a reasonable pace. It might be a glitch here. This one says it's elapsed time 54 minutes. Damn, that was actually a big gap. Anyways, yeah, make sure you're using proper fees on the network, guys. And as usual, we have our sponsors, Bittrex, the premier altcoin exchange. Any market you want to try, they got I think over 200 different markets, and yeah, trading pretty well. They're launching their new margin trading probably in the new year here, and yeah, registered with the BitLicense. Also doing outreach to the U.S. Commerce Board, I think it is, to kind of facilitate some regulatory hearings. Yeah, really good stuff from the guys at Bittrex. And as usual, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the live chat, and I will be happy to ask them. So without further ado, let's introduce the panelists. So first off, there's your lovely host. Me, Alex. I got tuning in, and we got our awesome hacker. Tastefully silent. I like it. Okay, and Ryan X Charles of Yours Software, or I guess it's not Yours Network anymore. You have a new name.
No, it's just Yours, or you can call it yours.org if you want to call it something less ambiguous.
Okay, cool. So I guess can you tell us what Yours is today and what it hopefully will be in the future?
Sure. Well, so what what it is today. So we haven't launched yet. What it is today is actually a Bitcoin. It's actually two separate products. Is the best answer I can give to this. There's a micropayments wallet and there's a social product, and we haven't merged the two yet. So what we spent about 6 months from something like March to October was making a micropayments wallet. Before that, we had a social product that we didn't launch because we realized we needed lower fees, so we had to make micropayments. Because everything's based on Bitcoin. What we're trying to do is we recognize there's a problem on social media where a lot of people are making content, really good content, and not being paid anything. So we're trying to get those people paid. So what it is, or what it's going to be, is just a social media app that looks something like Reddit, but with built-in Bitcoin micropayments so the users can easily pay each other.
I guess that's a pretty clear-cut example of what it could be. So you have quite the background. You were formerly of BitPay, and then formerly of Reddit, and formerly of BitGo, and now full-time on Yours.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's a long story there. I'll give you the brief one. If you want to ask more details, feel free. But I was getting a PhD in physics at WashU in St. Louis, Missouri, for about 6 years, and I discovered Bitcoin in 2011. And I was just very excited about Bitcoin. I thought it was really cool that it was possible to have decentralized money. So for about 2 years, Bitcoin was like a hobby of mine. I was sort of a Bitcoin advocate. I talked about Bitcoin a lot, but I didn't write any software or anything like that at that time. In 2013, it got big enough that I decided to go full-time Bitcoin. So I left my PhD and just got into the world of Bitcoin full-time. Necessarily knowing what I was going to do, I just felt like I didn't want to miss this opportunity. So I ended up joining BitPay. I worked there as an engineer. I wrote a lot of open source software. I was, for a while there, I was the lead engineer of Bitcore, which is BitPay's JavaScript implementation of Bitcoin. I also played a role in designing the first version of Copay, which is BitPay's multi-sig wallet. And is now actually, they seem to have launched a new app that's fully, basically BitPay is Copay now, I think. They've merged all of their software into one thing. Anyway, then I had this really odd and unique opportunity to join Reddit as cryptocurrency engineer. Reddit, of course, is this large social media company. Have a couple 100 million users, I think, something like that. And I thought, well, this is I can't pass up this opportunity. Reddit being this large social media website, and they want me to be a cryptocurrency engineer. It was kind of slightly unclear what they actually wanted me to do, but I thought that I'm sure we'll come up with something awesome. So I joined Reddit, And it's kind of a long story, but basically what happened is I worked for the CEO whose name was Ishan, and Ishan resigned shortly after I joined, and that basically killed my project. The new leadership basically just wasn't interested in doing things related to cryptocurrency. So then I worked at a company called BitGo for a while, Bitcoin security. But then in the summer of 2015, so about a year and a half ago now, I wrote an article called Fix Reddit with Bitcoin in the midst of a bunch of turmoil that was going on at Reddit in the community. And my article was very popular. So I thought, okay, well now I have to see this through. Like there's a lot of interest in doing some kind of unisection of cryptocurrency and Reddit. So let me just do this. So I quit my job at BitGo and decided to just make something happen, and started sketching out this vision and got a little community of people that were helping me. And over time, we've made a lot of progress. That was, like I said, a year and a half ago. We've had a couple of prototypes since then that for various reasons we didn't launch. They just weren't really ready. So I got a co-founder. His name is Clemens Lay. He's a PhD in computer science from Oxford, and he's played a critical role in designing and implementing our micropayments technology. And we just announced maybe a month or so ago that we closed a small angel round led by DCG, Digital Currency Group. So right now we're basically just trying to finish our MVP as quickly as possible and launch things so that people quit asking me, when are you launching? And we can say it's already been launched.
So any reason why you went with DCG instead of maybe doing, say, an ICO or something with the space or some sort of crowdfund?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why we didn't do an ICO. So let me give you a brief sort of background that's sort of relevant. When I worked at Reddit, what we were actually going to do at Reddit was to issue Reddit equity to the community in the form of a cryptocurrency. And the reason why we were going to do this was because Reddit is a very community-friendly organization, and they wanted the community to have ownership. In fact, they still do. There are public stances that they would still like to do something like this. But we didn't do it because, first of all, Yishan quit, and so the executive interest sort of declined in doing something like this. But also, we realized that it was extremely legally difficult to do what we wanted to do. We wanted to give equity to a huge number of people. It would have made us a public company. And Reddit didn't want to be a public company, and would have been very difficult to comply with those laws if they had distributed this cryptocurrency to millions of people. So fast forward to now, we sort of consider doing some type of, we could make our own new blockchain, our own new cryptocurrency, maybe do an ICO. There are a lot of reasons why we haven't done this. One is legal. Like I'm very concerned about, I don't want to, give equity to a lot of people only to be shut down and imprisoned or something for breaking, the law. And there are other ways we could do it that are just less legally risky. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with ICOs. I'm sure that some of them are perfectly legal, but I'm also pretty sure that some of them are not. And there just didn't seem to be any reason to take that risk. It does look, I mean, people have certainly been able to raise a lot of money that way. But I'm not sure our goal is just necessarily to raise a huge amount of money. I mean, our goal is to get content creators paid on the internet, and raising $5 million actually does not necessarily help us do that. And I just feel like it would actually place a lot of risk on the project that we would end up doing the wrong thing. So our goal isn't to just raise as much money as possible. Our goal is to actually execute on our mission, and so we'll sort of raise money as we see fit along the way. So we definitely consider that. And let me add one other conversation. Feel free to jump in if you want to ask questions or something. But one other comment I have on the ICO thing. We don't, there's a big advantage to using Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin has a huge ecosystem. And if you're familiar with the space, it's really quite true that you can leverage this ecosystem. I hear people in Ethereum, for instance, Ethereum probably has the second largest ecosystem. People complain about the infrastructure being immature in Ethereum, and that's the second biggest one. So if you want to make your own new blockchain or cryptocurrency, you face a lot of technical and economic problems with actually executing on that in practice at scale that are really difficult to overcome and just are complete non-issues if you use Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think that's something that one of your biggest competitors is really kind of dealing with right now. Steemit, they've actually made a lot of changes to their economic policy. I'm not sure if you have any um, words to say about your nearest competitor, who I guess is kind of first to market at this point.
Yeah. I mean, of course I have a lot to say about them. I'm not really deeply familiar with their technology or their product. But they have chosen a route that we deliberately decided not to go down. So it's very interesting, if for no other reason than I'm watching them as an experiment to see what happens. And they are facing some of the problems that I thought would happen, which are basically twofold. One is economic problems, where if you don't get the economics of a new blockchain exactly correct, you can have weird incentives problems. And one of the problems they're facing is that basically a small handful of people own a large fraction of all the coins. And if you talk with people that use Steem, I noticed you guys are on Steem, so I'd be interested to hear your opinion, but I'll tell you, you probably would say the same thing. What I've heard from most Steem users is they're very irritated about the small number of whales, where basically if you don't please these whales, you don't earn any money. And so that's probably the top complaint I've gotten from Steem users. So that's actually fairly easy to solve theoretically. Just distribute the coin more widely. So maybe they can solve that problem if they just if they're the ones that own most of it. I'm not really sure who does, but if they are the ones who own most of it, they might be able to just give it away, and that might solve that problem. But I think there are probably other economic problems that are less obvious that we'll see if that's true. The other side is technical. If you make a blockchain is a very novel system. It's a novel data structure, and it's a novel peer-to-peer network with the novel protocols at like every level. It's really hard to do this in a manner that actually works and actually is decentralized, and is also actually secure and is actually scalable. And they may have solved all these problems, but I suspect they haven't. And I know they hard forked recently, so what they're probably doing is identifying problems they have and trying to fix them. So the question is, first of all, if these are issues, and if they are, can they fix them? And it'll probably be very hard, but maybe they can.
Well, yes, I think they still have kind of training wheels on the website and the blockchain itself, trying to find improvements of it, not just technologically, but yeah, economically. I think one of the most assets to the website, like everything is produced by the blockchain, and really it's just kind of all stemming out from there. So how do you, I guess, incentivize people to bring Bitcoin onto yours, and to really, I guess, stimulate that economy?
Yeah, great question. So how do we get people to bring Bitcoin to the platform? I call this well, actually, I suppose there are two complementary problems. One is, first of all, if you don't already have any Bitcoin, how do we onboard those people? So if you don't have any Bitcoin, how do you get Bitcoin? And we have three answers to this. The first answer is you should just earn it. So if you are a content creator, you do not have to have Bitcoin to be able to earn Bitcoin on our platform. So if you are, if you're a content creator, not everyone is, but if you are, that's the best way to onboard yourself, is to create something of value and be paid for it. The next way is we'll integrate with Coinbase. Coinbase has a Bitcoin buy widget that we can place on our app. And so you'll be able to just buy Bitcoin if you are motivated to do so. And the final way we want to do this, which we won't have on day one, but we'll have sort of when we get around to it, is ads, that you will be paid to view ads. And I think some combination of those three will work for everyone. So the other problem that you're asking is, how do people bring Bitcoin to the platform? Because what we're not going to do is distribute $1 million worth of Bitcoin to all of our users, because we don't have that much Bitcoin. And I don't even think that would be a good idea if we did. Maybe if we had a huge amount of Bitcoin, maybe we would distribute a little bit, but otherwise, I think it'd be sort of handing money out. I don't think it would really work. I think what we have to do is we have to give reasons to people to pay for things on the internet. So people have to have a reason to spend Bitcoin on things. And we have a sort of a suite of, the best I can say right now is ideas about how to solve this. And what we're really doing is we're talking with our users That is to say, people on our mailing list, people on our Slack channel, people that are members of our community that want our product to work. We're basically talking with them and demoing our product one-on-one to them and trying to figure out what is the best way for this to work. And so let me give you a couple of ideas and examples so that you know what I'm talking about. First of all, a couple of Bitcoin companies, ChangeTip and ZapChain, tried to create Bitcoin social media apps that were based on tipping. And tipping is all about, let's suppose somebody creates some content, like suppose yourself, you probably received some tips on ChangeTip at some point.
Yeah, not enough.
Okay, so you're a content creator and somebody tipped you. The problem with tipping is that most people just don't tip. It's not very incentivizing to tip people. Some people do it, but you're almost certainly not going to really earn a living from just waiting for people to voluntarily give you money just because they like you. So there needs to be some better way, something to encourage people to pay money. So we have several different answers to this. We might do more than one of these at the same time. I think the best idea is actually to do all of them and see which one people like the best. And the only reason not to do that is that it's just harder. So one of our ideas is something we call the endorsement model. Here's how the endorsement model works. Imagine each piece of content looks like something on Reddit where there's an upvote button. And the upvote button costs 10 cents. Doesn't have to be 10 cents, but let's just run with that for a minute. Let's suppose it's 10 cents. When you click that button, you pay 50% to the creator, that is the person who posted the link, and 50% to the earlier endorsers. So for instance, if you're the first endorser, you pay 10 cents. You give all 10 cents to the creator. If you're the second endorser, you pay 10 cents. You give 5 cents to the creator, 5 cents to the first endorser. If you're the third endorser, you give 5 cents to the creator, 2.5 cents to the first endorser, 2.5 cents to the second endorser, and so on. Now, the reason for this payment scheme is that, first of all, it rewards the content creator. And secondly, it encourages people to endorse content, because if you are good at it and you are one of the first endorsers on something that becomes popular, you will profit from doing so. So it gives a profit motive to endorsing content. So this is one example of a payment scheme. This could work. In fact, I think it probably would work if we launched it. I think it would kind of work. Do you have any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, it sounds a lot like an MLM kind of for content distribution. Like you have, the more people you bring not only to the content but to the website, the more likely you are to get kind of a return on that.
Yeah, I think it is kind of like that. That's something people often point out. It does sound reminiscent of either affiliate marketing or multi-level marketing. And some people have a distaste for multi-level marketing. So most people, when they say that, are, and I'm not like, I've never done multi-level marketing or something, so I'm not personally strongly opinionated. But to some people that sounds bad. I think there is one thing bad about the endorsement model, which is I'm not sure people will like it. Like, if you're not effective at endorsing, not everyone can profit. I mean, like, the only way this works is if, like, most people are actually losing money. So those people are not going to be very happy with the endorsement model. So I'm worried about those people. So we've come up with a bunch of other payment schemes. So our second simplest payment scheme is very simple. It's almost the most obvious payment scheme you can imagine, which we call the purchase model. The way the purchase model works is, imagine, it's easiest to envision this with an article. So suppose you're writing an article. You write a 5-paragraph essay, and you place a paywall before the 5th paragraph, and the paywall is 10 cents. So anybody can read the first 4 paragraphs for free. But if they want to read that 5th paragraph, and of course anybody who actually likes the article and really wants to read what your conclusion is actually will want to read that last article, so they have to pay 10 cents to be able to read the last paragraph. So I think if the author controls where the paywall is and how much it is, they can figure out sort of an appropriate place and an appropriate amount for their content. So for instance, imagine you're writing a story. It's a fictional story. Well, if your readers are really engaged and they get most of the way through that story and they're dying to find out what happens, they'll probably pay for it, right? Same thing with something like investment research, where imagine you write down some research on these altcoins, and here's all the research, but then what's the conclusion? What do you actually want to buy? you have to pay 10 cents or something to be able to read the conclusion. So this is the purchase model. This is the reason why this is obvious, is because all you're doing is you're just buying the content, right? You're just paying to actually access the thing that you want, which is like the world's simplest transaction. So I like that one as well. I think that one would also probably work with a slightly different audience, slightly different type of content. It would also work for images and video. You could imagine for images, either like you can view a preview for free and you have to pay to view the full resolution version of the image, or you can view a black and white version of the image and you have to pay to see the color version, or you could see the top half of an image and you have to pay to see the rest of the image or something like that. So there are all sorts of ways you could imagine that working with it. And that would work with video. It's also clear, like you can watch the first 5 minutes, but to watch the second 5 minutes, you have to pay. So there are different ways you can imagine the purchase model working. So that's sort of our second idea. We don't currently have that one working, but it would be fairly easy for us to implement that version. Another version is something we call the investment model. The investment model assumes we already have purchasing working. So this assumes that we've already got people, paying for access to content. If that's the case, then this also makes it possible to invest in content. Wouldn't it be interesting if you see a great piece of content, you pay 10 cents to access it. You're like, this is awesome. This is going to be really popular. I'm putting in $10. I'm going to put in $10 for 10% of all future revenue. So you're paying a much larger amount to the content creator, but then you share in all future revenue. That's what we call the investment model. I also think that would work. It works if it augments the purchase model. And I think that'd be awesome for some types of content and things. I think for viral content. Do you want to say something? It looks like you're gonna.
Yeah. It sounds like that would really be breaching on what's that one site where they kind of do crowdsourcing, Patreon. So it sounds like it would kind of be overlapping with that. So you have a really good spectrum, I think, of different kind of social media like systems.
Yeah.
Because I think that's good rule sets.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our challenge is sort of, we've got this space of possibilities. We haven't figured out which is the right one. Like, what is the actual, at the end of the day, what are we actually going to launch? We don't currently know. And our best answer is like, I'm so convinced something in this space of possibilities is going to be huge, right? It could be something like Steam. I think Steam is a good sort of experiment. Whatever we launch will also be an experiment. I can't guarantee it will actually work. But I'm completely convinced some combination of content and payments will work, and it'll be huge. So our mission is to like find the best, most simplest thing in this space and make that work for a huge number of people. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, because it's not just going to be, I guess, a version of Reddit. It almost sounds like you're trying to build some sort of social element for like something like the Pirate Bay. So that's the other part of this too, is like data storage, right? Like you're right now you're just working on the social element and micropayments with like kind of a Lightning Network node, right?
Yeah, it's like Lightning.
Yeah. So and after that, you're going to do some BitTorrent integration of some sort.
Well, that's a good question. So when I sketched out the vision of this project originally, it was going to be fully decentralized. And I still like the idea of it being fully decentralized, but we had to pull back on that for practical reasons. It was just taking way too long, and we didn't want to solve every problem in the universe at once. So we decided to just focus in and try to solve this content monetization problem, which seemed like the most important one. What we would like to do in the future, though, is make it more and more decentralized with time. So that's where something like a BitTorrent or IPFS integration would come in. What I now see, though, is like I can see how difficult this is to pull off in practice. So I don't want to promise anything about decentralized content storage anytime soon. The only time we would do decentralized content storage is after we've already had a good deal of success with a centralized content storage model. And then we're banned from China. Because if we're banned from China, and which many companies are, I am half joking, but I'm also half serious, because a lot of companies like Facebook and Google are actually banned in China. I think a way to get into China, which is a huge market, right? Hundreds of millions of internet users. As a business, we absolutely want to be in there. And as like a mission of getting content creators paid, of course, we want to do this in China as well. I think being decentralized might be the only way we can get into China. Of course, there are other sort of philosophical reasons as well. But in any case, that's sort of, I would say, a part of our future vision. And in the near term, it's going to be hard enough to secure and scale micropayments that's probably going to occupy all of our engineering resources for a while.
Well, can you, I guess, go in more in depth, I guess, how you guys have achieved micropayments? Because Lightning Network kind of functions right now, but it's not like completely secure. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, that's true. So that's a good question. This is something we do different than any other predecessor in sort of the Bitcoin or crypto space. I watched companies like ChangeTip and Zapchain. I would say they sort of missed the and I like both those companies, of course, and I think they're awesome. But they have, both of them have sort of how can I say it politely? They're no longer with us. I mean, both of them are part of the past of Bitcoin now. I think they did two things wrong. One is the product, the other is the technology. I think both of them got both of those things wrong. So the product is what I was just talking about. I don't think we've nailed the product yet either. I think it's a really hard problem. The other thing, though, is the technology of actually making real peer-to-peer micropayments. Zapchain and ChangeTip didn't really try to do this. They were highly centralized, basically a database keeping track of how much Bitcoin you have. And this actually, there are a lot of reasons why I don't think it's a very good idea. You're probably better off using dollars, in my opinion, if you want to make it fully centralized, because it's just going to be easier for your users if you integrate with Stripe or something like that. But if you go the Bitcoin route, I think it's better for us as a company, and I think it's better for our users to have fully decentralized payments, where the users actually possess digital cash and send digital cash to other users. So the first version of our product that we had in April had normal Bitcoin transactions, and so it was fully decentralized. You're really sending real digital cash peer to peer. The problem at that time was that Bitcoin transactions had a fee of about 5 cents, and this was just in April. And 5 cents was too high, because we're like, well, we think that the payments are only going to be about 5 cents. So if your fee is also 5 cents, that's extremely expensive. So we needed micropayments. So what we did was, my co-founder Clemens and I, we read all of the micropayments papers, the Lightning Network paper, and there was a handful of others, and we designed our own micropayment system that is very similar to, but is not exactly the same as, the Lightning Network. So the smart contracts are the same as the Lightning Network, and we're not. There's only one big node. Okay, so it's also, another way of describing it is it's a payment channel hub, where each person has a payment channel to the hub. I don't like that phrasing, though, because I think it makes it sound more centralized than it is. The hub is completely trustless. The hub doesn't hold anybody's money. It just sort of routes the payments from one user to another. So it's really like the Lightning Network, but with only one node. So anyway, yeah, so it took a while to design and implement that. So that occupied most of our time for about 6 months. So now we're entering sort of the next phase where we're using the micropayments. There's still a good deal of work to do, as I said, with securing and scaling the micropayments. But I would say the fundamental part of making it work is now over.
And that will kind of, I guess, tie in really well if and when SegWit gets activated, right? Because that's kind of a key requirement for it to really interact with a lot of other services.
Yeah, great question. So on SegWit, SegWit is necessary to achieve a good Lightning Network. Technically speaking, you can have kind of a crappy Lightning Network without SegWit. And the major difference is that technically without SegWit, first of all, you have a transaction malleability problem. I'm not even really sure there's any good answer to this. Like, our payment channels right now are one way. So in order to have two-way payments, you have to set up two payment channels. So the reason for that is this is a way to work around this transaction malleability problem in the case of funding a payment channel. But it's really irritating, because it means now there are two payment channels when really, like, a real Lightning one would have simply a sort of doubly sided payment channel. So there's sort of one extra transaction there. I think that might be the only thing, though, if I'm remembering correctly. Right now we have it working, because we have these unidirectional payment channels. we have it working one direction. Sorry, we have it working without segregated witness. Okay, without SegWit. But there's the extra transaction issue, and I think there's also another issue with respect to something like the person receiving the payment channel can, like, if they don't respond to you, they can like DOS attack you. So there is another subtle vulnerability. And I can't quite remember the status of that without segregated witness. But I believe there is a way to do it fully secure without segregated witness. It's basically just worse. So ours is currently working without segregated witness, although we had always planned to use it, and we'll just see what happens if it doesn't activate. If it doesn't activate, I don't know. I mean, you know, ours is working without it. What we'll do is, if segregated witness doesn't activate, what we will do is we'll assess the security status of our product and decide whether we feel comfortable launching it or not. Because if the security problem is small, we'll just launch it anyway. And then we'll just wait for segregated witness to be fixed later, or we'll fix the security problems in other ways. For instance, if we whitelist who can use the app, and we only let you invite your friends or something like that, that makes it a little bit harder for people that are just trying to attack the system to get invited to it. Another thing we could do is just charge people to use it. So that way, again, like if you're just an attacker, they don't necessarily want to pay money to be able to access it. So what we would do is we'd come up with more practical ways to get around the security problem. But it is certainly desirable that segregated witness launches so that we just don't have to worry about these issues at all.
So do you think that it's hit a plateau of 25%, or is it going to continue rising? Like, what do you think is the hang up right now? Because it seems like adoption is kind of slowing a bit.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, I watched the previous soft forks with Check Lock Time Verify and Check Sequence Verify, both of which I watched eagerly, hoping that these things would sort of, you know, get into the protocol, because Lightning also uses Check Lock Time Verify and Check Sequence Verify. Those things did get in. Like, there was no problem having enough miner support for those things to for those sort of soft forks to land into the blockchain. As far as why segregated witness is stalled, I think it's fair to say it's stalled. I've been watching it. It's 25% for a couple weeks, I think. Looks like it plateaued. I suspect what's going on is there was actually a lot more dissent about the conflict between segregated witness and increasing the block size than most people realized. Because with r/Bitcoin being censored, and I don't know what your stance is on all this stuff or whatever, but you know, r/Bitcoin doesn't show you the whole truth. They have removed a huge amount of dissent from the current direction of Bitcoin Core. So it is possible, and I don't actually know whether this is true or not, because I don't really know. It's not like there's no other community forum or something. I can only judge what I can based on Twitter and my personal friends and stuff like that. I suspect that what's happened is just the dissent is actually pretty large. That they're actually, maybe some of these miners actually don't want segregated witness, that maybe they're in favor of a block size increase instead. And I'll give you my personal opinion. Like, I definitely like segregated witness as technology, but I'm very disturbed about what has happened in the Bitcoin community, where it's become the norm for people to sort of, there are two completely separate forks of the Bitcoin community that don't overlap. So the Bitcoin Core developers don't even talk with some of these other people who have different views. So the community has bifurcated, and this has just become the norm, and people don't even realize, you know, the extent. And it's hard to measure, but I suspect that may be what has happened. That actually some of the miners simply don't want segregated witness because they want to increase the block size, or maybe they're just waiting. Maybe they're waiting to see, you know, somebody else take charge or something. I don't really know, but I suspect that that's what has happened. Although, with that being said, I really don't know, and I'm hopeful that it will end up activating anyway. So we'll just see what happens. I don't know. What do you think?
I've heard I have a couple good developer friends who kind of look more at it, and I guess a lot of their issues, or at least their opinion of the issue, was that Blockstream, I guess, would get a lot of more control of the versioning of Bitcoin going forward. Like, it will make it easier for them to do soft forks in the future. So in this way, they thought it was too much of a centralization of power, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons why we are getting a lot of resistance for it, or maybe it's just it needs more features added into it. Maybe even a soft fork needs to be a large enough change to actually have more go for it. Because yeah, like if we have 25% here, and if Classic had 15, like maybe the only way to get 95 is to be cumulative and actually include a lot of these features all in one soft fork.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of it maybe just stems from mistrust in like Blockstream.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, yeah. So maybe that's the answer, but then how is that even going to happen? I really don't know. Like there is no government of Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin Core can't make an important change like this, who else could? I mean, there's no other group of people. I mean, I don't really know how this is going to play out, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm hopeful that it will work itself out, just because all these people in the space want this to work somehow, but I don't know how that's going to happen.
It might come down to even something like sidechains, just more stuff, more developments get put ready to be implemented. But it's weird that they chose like 95%. Like it is such a large number. But then you look at like the real world example of like a hard fork was the Ethereum network. Like they had the vote that was pretty much showed that there was about a 15-85 split in the network, and now you do have that same sort of percentage split in Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So, yeah. And one thing we've learned on this show of having Vlad Zamfir speak is that if you have two different soft forks implemented at the same time, they can act like hard forks, where the network can split. So, yeah. I think at this point, maybe we should go to Decentral or Decontrol. If you guys have any questions for us, I know you're listening there patiently.
I have a bunch. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you good.
Awesome. Okay, my name is Paul, and I'm really excited to see that this talk was happening today. I've been following Steemit for a little while. I was on it. I made $15 recently, actually, or bucks. It says $15, right? But who knows where it goes, right? I'm still not sure how to take the money out of it. But one of the things that I noticed, like overall, like my background's not really tech; it's more just the user interface and that kind of stuff. I've noticed that lots of these like Bitcoin type companies and altcoins, they kind of get really heavy into the tech stuff, but they forget about what you were mentioning, Ryan, like this whole network effect and harnessing people, like the population, like actually using it, right? So you get this really good system that works really well, or you've got lots of theories to make it work really well, but then somebody else kind of runs away with it because they start actually doing it, like Steemit is doing, right? So I went to talk this summer with Scenario, and they were also in a similar situation. They had lots of cool ideas, but it's confusing for me as a guy that doesn't understand much of the tech stuff, where it is, how to use it, right? So my first question is just, when can I start using yours?
Good question. Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you what. We're trying to solve that as quickly as possible. Hopefully, as soon as possible is definitely one answer to that. So, one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to make a mainstream product. So we are absolutely trying to reach a large mainstream audience, and most of our users should not have to know or care about crypto at all. So that's absolutely one of our goals, is to reach a genuinely mainstream audience. We're not going to be there on day one for a lot of reasons, but we have a whole bunch of ideas. I think we have sort of solutions to all of the usability problems. I believe we can make it so that you will manage your own keys without necessarily noticing, because all we have to do is sync back encrypted versions of your keys to your different devices. This is already basically a solved problem. Other apps do stuff like this all the time. There's a tool we're using called PouchDB, which is a backed up and synchronized database. This just sort of pretty much solves that problem for us. Other problems, like, for instance, most people don't know what Bitcoin is, but they know what dollars are, or they know what their local fiat currency is. So we're going to display a dollar symbol, or whatever your local fiat currency symbol is, on the screen, so it looks like dollars. Another thing we're going to do is, and then of course, if you want to buy it, you can use your credit card, so you don't even know that it's Bitcoin. And if you want to cash out, at some point we'll have to integrate with exchanges for that. So we might not make it fully transparent, but I think it'll be pretty easy. We'll also integrate with other Bitcoin merchants so that people can easily buy stuff with it without even necessarily having to cash out to fiat, which is really the best way and the fastest way to spend your money. So we're basically hiding the Bitcoin. We're going to put a fiat symbol on there. There are a bunch of things like that. Another thing is, our audience. So I'm a Bitcoin user. My co-founder is a Bitcoin user. All of our friends are Bitcoin users. But some of our users are not. They're only interested in our product because they're a content creator and they want to be paid for their work. And they're only interested in our product because it might solve their problem for them. And they don't care about Bitcoin at all. So those are the types of people that we're trying to shape our product for. They're people that are not, fans of Bitcoin. They're people that are just, they're a content creator of some type. They're a journalist in some cases. Some of our sort of community members are musicians, or they produce film. So they're normal people. They're people that don't care about Bitcoin, or at least it's not something that's important to them. Their work is what's important to them. So I think we have, in theory, answers to all of these questions. It'll take a while. I would say that what we're going to launch on day one is going to be just an MVP. It'll be very limited. What we'll do is, if we feel like we've got the basics of it right, that's when we'll probably raise more money, the normal way, or by raising money from VCs probably, and then hire a few more people to help us solve the rest of these problems to make it genuinely mainstream. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give you, is we are absolutely committed to making a mainstream product. This is not something just for Bitcoin or crypto. I think Bitcoin is on our side in that sense. Like, if we made our own new blockchain or cryptocurrency, that would only make it even harder. How are we going to integrate with exchanges if there are almost no exchanges? How are we going to, enable you, I don't know, to easily buy things with it if almost no one accepts some new coin that you invent? I think using Bitcoin is a huge asset with respect to reaching a mainstream audience. So I hope we solve all these problems. I think we've solved them all in theory, but it will take a while to execute on actually implementing all the solutions that we have in theory.
Cool.
So have you guys floated the idea of even kind of working with current sites to kind of be like an application layer, like similar to maybe how like Reddit Enhancement Suite is kind of built on top of Reddit? Like, you could have yours as kind of an extra layer on top of Reddit?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. So some of the people that we've talked to, some of these people own their own content destinations. Okay, there are a handful of people in our community that own some type of like content destination, much smaller than Reddit. But what they don't want to have to post their content somewhere else. They want to just integrate yours into their website. So this is something that's on our mind. I also like the idea of like just having been someone who's used social media. I like the like buttons, like Facebook and Reddit like buttons that you see on other articles. What if you could just put like a yours button on your article? Maybe that's how it could be. We're definitely considering those ideas, and I think there are two reasons why we would do that. Either we are successful at our first product, which is a social media destination, and we want to sort of branch outward, just like Facebook. Facebook added the like button after their main product was already successful, right? The like button came second. We would do it the same way. Or if we're not successful at making a social media destination, then maybe we'll do that instead. So maybe we'll try, okay, well, we haven't created like a destination, we haven't created a replacement for Reddit. Maybe we can augment Reddit. So that would also be a backup plan. So I do like something like that, like either maybe it's something lives in your web browser, or it's a button that website owners put on their site, something like that. But we won't do something like that soon. I would put that probably at least a year out before we would try something like that.
What I'd really like to see someone do is take AdBlock, because I think AdBlock got purchased recently. Build a version of AdBlock where you basically can receive micropayments to have ads come through. So like you, the end user, would have have more stuff show up if they were actually paying you to see it. It would be kind of interesting.
I think that's a cool idea. There's an app called OurData.us. Have you ever heard of this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it's not a crypto app, but I've met the founder a couple times. He's a really cool person. What this is, Our Data, it is basically what you described except no crypto. The way it works is you sort of sign up for this thing, and the company Our Data partners with advertisers, and you block all ads except ads that are provided by their advertising partners, and you do view those ads, but you get credit for viewing them, and then you get paid a sort of a fraction of the advertising revenue for those ads. So it's kind of like what you described, except a little bit. I think a little bit more traditional. Like there's no crypto basically. I think crypto would be cooler. I think it'd be a lot faster for you to get your money. It'd be really cool. Like every time you view an ad, to see a little ticker go up, like, oh, I've got 1 more cent now. It's not quite that cool, but I think it's sort of the next best thing. So they'll probably like send you your money at the end of the month or something like that. I think is how it'll work.
Interesting play on names though, like with the Hours Data. So how did you come up with yours?
Great question. So this project was originally called DAT, D-A-T-T. That stood for Decentralize All the Things, which is a sort of meme in the Bitcoin community. We had DAT.co. And I think I also bought DAT.net. But what happened was I liked this name, and all the Bitcoin friends that I have liked the name. They're like, oh, that's really funny, DAT. Everybody liked the name. It was short. It was Googleable. DATT. You could easily Google it and find it. The problem was every time I talked with a normal person who wasn't a Bitcoin user, their eyes would glaze over when I tried to explain what this name meant. So it was something that appealed only to Bitcoin users or people that are members of like the sort of crypto or decentralization community, but not whatsoever to normal people. And so I realized that the name became a barrier to reaching normal people, which was our goal, right? We want to reach a mainstream audience. This isn't just for Bitcoin people or crypto people. It's for everybody. So we needed a new name. So I had been collaborating with IDEO for a few months. IDEO is a big design firm in San Francisco. And they basically told me their name process for how they come up with new names. They help people come up with new names for products. And I just sort of went through my own little process where I tried to come up with a better, more mainstream name. And another thing I did was to not care whether I had the domain name or not. I decided to just come up with the best name, whether I can get the .com or not. So I came up with the name Yours because I figure this is all about, what are we really trying to do? This is about you owning your content. It's your money. You should be paid for the work that you do. It belongs to you. It's yours. So Yours seemed like the best name that conveyed, what our mission was. We want you to own your content and your money and your community. So that's where the name comes from. And I don't own the .com. I'm not in touch with those people. We have bought the .org, which we just bought. I think we got a pretty good deal. I won't say the amount, but it's fairly low for what .org and .nets normally go for. So we did get a pretty good deal on that. But we'll try and buy the .com if we can. But either way, it's pretty Googleable. We're actually something like the #4 Google result right now, and the only things above us are dictionary definitions of the word yours. So I think if we get a little bit more popular, we'll probably be the #1 Google result. So because there just aren't that many people using a name like this. So.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I know. I heard a lot of interesting comments when I was trying to explain who was coming on the show, and the naming was a little bit off for that. But I think eventually it will go past. I guess it's a verb. It will go to a noun. Just one of the guys who asked the question is like you should change it to yours with YERZ, or like swap out some letters. But I think just being true to the English word is fine. At Decentral there, do you guys have any more questions? I hope you're not falling asleep on the couch.
I have one more, if I could ask.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, I think it's a really good choice to go with Bitcoin as opposed to some other cryptocurrency. one of the problems with Steem is that like they have like free cryptocurrencies. There's something, it's power and then Steem dollars and Steem. It's very confusing. But so it's really cool that you're using the one. But how easy will it be to take the Bitcoin out?
It'll be very, very easy to take the Bitcoin out. So, you know, in our case, you have the private keys to your Bitcoin. Okay, we're doing this for a whole lot of reasons, but the lesson is that we can't stop you from taking your Bitcoin out. So the app just lets you immediately withdraw your money, and even if for some reason we turned that feature off, you know, you always are in possession of it. You could use, you know, a different app or something like that to withdraw your money. So the answer is immediately. I mean, it's as fast as a Bitcoin transaction can hit the blockchain. You can broadcast your latest confirmation transaction, and you've got your money. So the answer is immediately.
So do you have your private key client side and encrypted? Is that what you said? What was the database called again?
PouchDB. PouchDB is not a encrypted database, but there's only one master key. So there's only one thing that has to be encrypted. So yeah, it's a client-side encrypted master key, and then well, I take that back. There's also something called the HTLC and revocation secrets that are involved in the micropayments protocol. Those also have to be backed up. We haven't. I mean, we'll have to encrypt those as well. I guess we haven't done that yet. That's unsolved. But in any case, yes, it will be encrypted client side and backed up to a server.
Is that kind of what like the Signal protocol is doing with like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger? Is that how they do it as well? Like some kind of way of having to use it without having to know they even own it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to Signal or, you know, WhatsApp or Facebook. I imagine that's how they work. They probably do. So there are a few subtleties here. First of all, modern web browsers actually have client-side cryptography built in. So if you use the same, you know, crypto that's provided to you by modern web browsers, they have a lot of this stuff sort of built in. However, we're using the same crypto as Bitcoin. I mean, you know, your Bitcoin private keys have to use the same crypto as Bitcoin. Unfortunately, that crypto is actually not built into web browsers. So the elliptic curve used by Bitcoin, SECP256K1, is not built into web browsers. That's not included in web crypto. The hash functions, I don't even think that web crypto gives you low-level access to stuff like that. So you can't even do like just a hash function, at least from what I recall. I might misremember that. But in any case, the way it probably works with Facebook and WhatsApp, with their web apps, is probably something like that if they are actually encrypting things client side. You know, with WhatsApp being like the normal WhatsApp app is a web app. I don't know if they use JavaScript or whatever, but I'm sure it's something like that. Your keys are client side. And then to give you a little bit more background, the way we're doing it, sort of technologically, is very similar to Copay, BitPay's multi-sig wallet, which works the same way. The keys are encrypted client-side and client-side database, same thing. And also blockchain.info. Blockchain.info is also the same way. There's an encrypted client-side database, so it's a web app, but actually they don't have your private keys. The private keys are stored in the web browser. So.
Cool.
Oh, sorry.
No, so yeah, that's right. I've always been curious how that works.
So with your time with BitGo and the recent, I guess, issue with the Bitfinex, BitGo, I don't think we ever got an official report of Bitfinex.
You broke up a little bit there, but you're asking about BitGo and Bitfinex. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a bit of a snowstorm outside. Yeah, I think. Yeah. What do you think happened with Bitfinex? And
yeah, sure. Let me give you my thoughts on it. So first of all, I'm definitely not privy to any special information at all, but I did work at BitGo, so I'm familiar with how BitGo works. I'm in a position where all I can really do is speculate. What I think probably happened is I'm pretty sure BitGo themselves were not compromised. BitGo has absolutely the highest security standards I think a company could possibly have. Like, I think that they will probably, well, I mean, it's always possible that they could be hacked. That's always possible. But I think that it's about as unlikely with BitGo as it would be with, say, Google or something like that. They're extremely serious about security. It would take like a state level actor to hack them. So I don't think they were hacked. It was nothing like that. Although I think what probably happened was Bitfinex was hacked. And Bitfinex probably chose a rule set for under what conditions Bitcoin can be spent that were probably loose. So they probably wanted to make sure their users would never be impacted by tight controls over spending Bitcoin. And so they probably set very loose controls. And that's probably what led to, once the hacker got in, the controls were very loose. And so the hacker was able to just send a whole bunch of Bitcoin. So the fault probably lies, I mean, I don't want to say, it's like, where does the blame, I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't want to finish that sentence, but it's hard to place blame exactly. But I bet that's what happened. I bet Bitfinex was using a loose rule set. So who's to blame for that is another question, but I bet that's what happened.
But it seems like both companies have definitely taken different steps after such a large event occurred. I think now BitGo makes it a policy to deal with more than one person at each company, and implementing a lot more protocols to kind of prevent a mass withdrawal like what happened.
Yeah.
Got one question here on how yours maybe will function. Do you guys, I guess, plan on having monikers or names of some sort, and how are those going to be assigned and registered?
That's a good question. So it's another thing, you know, our current version of the product is extremely simplistic, and so we haven't even answered questions like that yet. There are no usernames right now. You are identified by your key pair, which is definitely not ready for a mainstream audience yet, but it allows us to just sort of write the software without having to answer that question yet. What I think, look, Facebook is the most mainstream social media network. There are over 1 billion users. I think it's almost like 2 billion or something. It's at least 1.5 billion, I think. I mean, it's insanely large. Facebook does not really have usernames. If you sign up for Facebook right now, you type in like your email address, and you don't have a username. You have a name, but your profile URL is like a random number unless you go into your settings and choose a username. So a username is an advanced feature for advanced users. I think the way to reach a mainstream audience is to treat usernames the same way as Facebook. I don't think there should be usernames. I think you should just have a name. And you know, the UI should work very, very well to make sure that you are connected with people that you care about, either they're your friends or they're people that you follow, without having to care what their username is. Now, this is sort of a big problem. I'm not sure if we'll solve all this on day one. What we're actually probably going to do, although I think Facebook has really the right answer, I think doing it as well as Facebook is really hard. We might latch onto probably Twitter, because Twitter is a very open platform, and we can you can authenticate with your Twitter account. We can that's a fairly easy feature for us to add. We can then import who you follow and who follows you, because it's all public information. And so that way your public social graph sort of comes for free. And then that way your username on yours is the same as Twitter. So we might do it that way. We were just literally debating this today. And for all the advantages of basically that you don't have to worry about re-importing your social graph, because it's just the same thing as your public Twitter profile. So if we have usernames, it'll probably be that. We also are friends with the people at Blockstack. So I think that we'll probably allow people to have, if you're familiar with Blockstack, you know, like decentralized identity. We will probably allow people to auth with their Blockstack ID. However, I didn't say this to them in person, but basically I'm a little worried that they're a little too hard for normal people to use, because you have to download the Blockstream app, and there's no way we're going to require our users to do that. But if there's a convenient way for us to do Blockstack, we'll do that. But anyway, to answer the question, will we have usernames? If we have usernames, it'll probably be the same as some other public social media app like Twitter, and it'll probably be Twitter.
Okay, fair enough. Another question here. Do you think Reddit Karma will ever have value?
That's an awesome.
Or does it even?
That's an awesome question. That's so cool because and this is I only worked at Reddit for 4 months, so I'm not I do have some experience working there. It was very cool to work at Reddit. I had used Reddit for I don't know, like 6 years or something before I joined Reddit. So I was like, cool. I'm like I'm here. I'm like in like this is where everything happens. This is Reddit like in real life. This is amazing. But I never asked that specific question or so. What we were going to do with the cryptocurrency at Reddit would have been a different thing. It wouldn't have been equal to Karma. So had we added value to the Reddit experience, we were not planning on making Karma real. That's not what we were going to do. I do wonder though, like Reddit was invented, let's see, I think it was 2005. So it would have been 4 years before Bitcoin was invented. I wonder if Reddit were invented today, whether they would use cryptocurrency as Karma. I think they probably would. I mean, I really think that's the right way. I think the reason why they used Karma was because they probably didn't even conceive of the possibility of doing something like a currency built in. And even if they had, it would have been next to impossible for them to figure out how to do it, and it just would have been a waste of time. So I think they just wouldn't have been able to execute on it. So doing it like Karma was just easier. So I don't know. I don't think Karma will ever have value. I'll say I guess I'm hopeful that it will, but I think I have to give my honest prediction that it probably won't. But I also, I think that Reddit as a company is still interested in bringing some type of value to the platform. So I'm hopeful that some form of value will be included in the Reddit platform eventually.
That was one thing I really found interesting with the Steemit platform. Like, I think it was a really good execution of that question. It's like, what happens if Reddit or Karma had value? So, like, how would you approach that? Because if you look at Reddit Karma, what it is now, it's highly inflationary. Just like there's a lot of upvotes being created every day. Yeah. So how do you get around that, and how do you kind of quantify it in a way?
Yeah.
So, it was a very interesting experiment, as you call it, and it's something that I still watch every day. For Decentral, do you guys have any more questions for us?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So I really like this stuff. Okay, so I have a question. One of the problems with Steemit again was that you have to have a Reddit account in the beginning to sign up, right? So I didn't have an account, so I had to make an account. That was a bit difficult because I had to have like 10 Karma or something, so it took a while. And same with Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. So would there be any other way of creating an account with you guys? Apart from creating a fake Twitter account or something?
That's a good question. I will take note of the fact that you do not have a Twitter account. You are someone who is a prospective user, and we certainly want to please our prospective users. So if many of our prospective users don't have Twitter, then I don't think we'll be requiring a Twitter account. Again, the way it works right now is like the world's simplest sign-up process. If you don't, like, the keys are stored in your browser. The way it works right now, you run the app. If you don't already have keys, new keys are generated for you. So you're like automatically signed up with literally zero sign up. We have currently achieved the ideal of zero sign up. There's no sign up whatsoever. You open the app for the first time, you're instantly signed up. Your key pair is generated client size, users are identified by keys. So the question is to what extent we preserve that as we sort of move forward with the other goals we have. I think normal users are absolutely just not going to want to deal with knowing people by a giant looking, like, we're actually using BIP32 keys to represent your identity right now. And a BIP32 public key pair, extended public key, it's more than twice as long as a Bitcoin address. It's not user friendly. It's not something that, I mean, it's hard to even copy and paste. I mean, it's a really long, random looking thing. It's not very friendly as an identifier for humans. So, what we'll probably do is, another idea we debated was maybe the way it'll work with Twitter integration is you simply can choose to auth with Twitter if you want to. And if you do, then it says, you know, something like Twitter verified, and it says what your username is. You can click on that to go to your Twitter profile. And if you don't do that, maybe you don't have a username, and maybe you're just not verified. So maybe there's nothing stopping you from not verifying with Twitter, but it'll look a little bit better, and you will look like a little bit more trustworthy of a user if you choose to verify with Twitter. So that's probably the route we'll go down, because I would hate to not allow you to use the app just because you don't have a Twitter account.
Yeah, that's like Airbnb, right? They do something, or couch surfing, right? You can send your ID, but you don't have to do like you're missing like go get the check mark or whatever. Cool. And that leads me to another question. Again, Steve isn't the thing I can compare it to. They auto-generate passwords, right? And then the password you have to copy it somewhere. It's like you said, it's a long one. It's a bunch of things, of characters. Will you have the option of making your own password? Which is a stupid question to ask, because I feel like it should always be there, right? But how will that work for you guys?
That's a good question. So this is both a usability question and a security question. So although I haven't asked them this, I'm sure the reason why Steam auto-generates your password is for security reasons. They're guaranteeing that you have a sufficiently unpredictable password that no one can crack the encryption and steal your private keys. We will. I think it's unfriendly though, the way that they did it. We will probably not generate a password randomly for you, or perhaps what we'll do is maybe allow you to overwrite it or something like that. But it's really different. Like if the user has, basically if they type in a short password, something like, imagine the user types in 123. What if we're just using, I mean, you know, what if like if all your data is encrypted with the password 123 and that's stored on our servers, and someone hacks our servers and they can just crack the data, and they can, because you can easily crack a 123 password. In fact, you can easily crack passwords up to 8 characters long. So, you know, if users use a very weak password, they're really just compromising their own security. Like it's really a problem. So we will probably do that, because one advantage of our platform is we're only dealing with very small amounts of money. So if you are only storing, say, $1 to $5 worth of value, and your password is 123, well, the worst thing that could happen is you lose $1 to $5 worth of value because you got hacked. So it's probably okay in our case to allow the user the ability to set their own password, and if they choose a weak password, that's their business. Maybe another thing, you know, another idea we've discussed is we just display a warning. You know, warning weak password. But if you choose a weak password, then it's on you. So maybe, you know, because I completely agree with you, and I think it's very sort of usability hostile to generate a long random password for the user, because that you've just eliminated like 99% of users to do something like that. So
I have a bit of a follow-up. Sorry, just last follow-up, but so I have a friend and he's working on it's an alternative to Dropbox. It's called PureGauss. And what he does is when you log in there, it actually will say that, so you put your name on there, like your login name, and then when you're making an account, it'll say your password, like you type in your password, right? And then if it's one of those bad passwords, what will happen is it'll say, warning, you have the 45th most popular password, right? So it's a really neat way of kind of getting around that. Or so I'm not going to make me think twice. I put test just to play with it, right?
that's a great idea.
Fourth most popular or something.
Right.
It's an interesting way of, and it's just so user friendly. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's a great. I love that idea of telling them. So you, if you know, you make it very clear to them in a friendly way that you're not, that what you're doing is insecure. But and that's, you know, it's okay. It's your choice, and you're alerting them in a friendly way is the best word I can. It's the friendliest possible way to warn them that what you're doing is not secure. So I think that's a great idea. Maybe we'll do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing with a lot of crypto services, especially in the past month with the recent advent of cell phone SIM swapping, is two-factor authentication is becoming almost standard or required for a lot of crypto services. I understand usability of your platform. You might not opt for it to be required, but would that be something I guess you guys would implement?
Could you say that again? I didn't hear everything that you said.
Two-factor authentication, so using something like Google Authenticator.
Yeah, so two-factor auth. I think that's a very practical solution for most people. It's slightly different though when it comes to crypto. because you still have to encrypt the person's keys. And at the end of the day, there's got to be some password, some key that's managed by the user that cannot be broken if they're ever hacked, to actually do the encryption of the actual keys at the end of the day. So if we use something like Google Auth works for like fully centralized services where you're just logging in, but for encrypting data, it doesn't help with that. So, you know, if we are hacked, and the user is using two-factor auth just has nothing to do, it won't help with that. If the user is hacked, if their device is hacked, two-factor auth doesn't help with that. Two-factor auth is a practical option that I think will improve the sort of the practical reality of security for normal users, but it doesn't fully solve the problem. But let me just add, there is a theoretical solution that I don't think anybody's doing. You just need hardware multisig. So the two-factor auth device needs to be something that understands Bitcoin cryptography, and it needs the ability to do things like generate Bitcoin keys, to sign a Bitcoin transaction and validate Bitcoin transactions, as well as sign and verify other types of data with this using the same cryptography as Bitcoin. If it can do that, then you could have a separate device like a YubiKey or something like that, or you know, I guess if you're using your laptop, maybe your phone could be the second device or something like that. But it is certainly possible to do two-factor auth securely, which is multisig. It just has to be multisig, where there is more than one key. There's a key on one device and a whole other key on a whole other device. But there's no like mainstream service like Google Auth doesn't work like that, and Authy doesn't work like that. So hopefully in the future.
Could you do that today, like for a Bitcoin wallet?
What was that? I didn't.
I was just wondering, could you do that for a YubiKey for today? Like, can you do that with Bitcoin? Like, have a key on your YubiKey or?
I don't think so, because I'm not. Maybe I don't fully understand YubiKey. I think the way YubiKey works is something like, doesn't it generate? It's like it receives a signal and it gets like a unique number, and then you plug it in and it types out that number. Isn't that how it works? It does something like that.
Yeah, I got one. So yeah, you plug it in, and I'm not sure what it pretends it's a keyboard, and then you like tap it. And
yeah.
String.
I think. Again, it could be maybe these devices are more advanced than I realize. What it needs to do, and what I don't think it does, is it needs to literally take in data from your computer. Like, imagine you want, you know, genuine multi-sig two-factor auth. The way it should work is the device has its own keys. It takes in data from your computer, signs it on the device, and spits back out the signed data, so that the keys never leave the device. I don't think that's how YubiKey works. However, I believe actually the Trezor does work that way. And I think maybe Ledger might also work this way. The advantage of Trezor is it has a screen, so you can verify on the device what you're actually signing. So I think Trezor might actually solve this problem. So I think you know, that might be a secure answer. The problem, of course, is that not everybody has a Trezor, and I wouldn't want people to have to buy a Trezor before being able to use the app. But maybe if you're storing a lot of money, maybe that's a more secure option for advanced users.
I'm just having a vision now of all the people who normally like Reddit at work now have like a Trezor plugged in to browse yours instead of Reddit. Well, I think we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, unless we have any final questions from the guys in the basement there. Because we have a little bit of a tradition how we end the show. We like to predict the price of Bitcoin in 1 week's time. So I got the chart pulled up here, and I'm zooming out now the 1 day because I think it's definitely worthy of that level of approach. So Ryan, what do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be next week, which I think is December 16th?
Sure, I'll give you my prediction. So I've been involved in Bitcoin since 2011, and I've been saying the price is going to go up for the entire time. And I've been right for some of that time. I've been wrong at other times. I think the price is probably going to go up. I think if it goes above what it is, what did you say it is now? Like 771?
Yeah, 771.
I definitely think I think we're clearly in an uptrend. I think it's going to go up. If I had to give an actual price by next week, let's see. I'm going to say, let me say 780. Okay, I think roughly speaking, it'll be 780. So put that, mark me as that figure.
All right, 780. Cameron, you're in the basement there. What do you think?
781, Bob.
781. All right. Anyone else in the basement there? I see we got one from the YouTube chat here. Fellow decontroller David G says 777 and 77 cents. So I'll put David down. Avid fan of the show. And you know what? I'm finding myself being more of the bear on these shows right now because I'm just hoping for that lucky retrace on a Friday night. So I'm going to say 745. You know, I like to buy those dips.
I want to buy some more. I'm hoping to get that.
All right. So yeah, we'll end the show there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. The guys in the basement there, thank you for weathering the storm. And Ryan, Charles, thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you want to tell us, I guess, where to find out more?
Sure. So please just visit us at yours.org. We have a poll that we have people fill out right now that gives us some critical information about answering some of the questions that came up. So just visit yours.org and please fill out our poll.
Perfect. On that note, thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and if you're watching this in the future, you know, do a vote on yours. And everyone else, see you in the next 1,000 blocks.